just interrupting the podcast because I want to talk to you about motorsporttickets.com, and I promise you're not going to want to miss out on this one. As the motorsport season starts, now is the best time to secure your tickets before they start to go up in price or to sell out. Motorsporttickets.com have a huge variety of different tickets from Formula 1 race weekends, which of course include Formula 2 and Formula 3, the World Endurance Championship, MotoGP, Le Mans 24 Hours, and so many other events that are going on in the world of motorsport. Get your tickets fast now by following the link in the description to see all of their exclusive offers. Right, back to the podcast. Hello everyone and welcome back to the F2 show by Inside F2. It was another action-packed weekend of Formula 2 action, wasn't it? Joining me to reflect on round number 4 of the season, we have Aaron Harper and we have Lawrence Griffin. And guys, it's been a busy couple of months since the last time we had a Formula 2 round in Melbourne. Starting to forget your voices a little bit. So Lawrence, it's great to have another weekend of Formula 2 action to review, isn't it?
Well, what do you mean it's been a busy couple of months? I've just been sat in front of my telly waiting for the next Formula 2 race to start. I've just been waiting that and waiting to hear both of your voices. So I'm glad that we're finally back. And what's even better is we're going to follow it up shortly with Monaco as well. So plenty to look forward to. Absolutely.
Of course, we've just been sat there twiddling our thumbs for 2 months waiting for Formula 2 to come back on our screen, haven't we? Of course. Aaron, as Lawrence has just said, Monaco just around the corner, really exciting. But Imola, good weekend, right?
Yeah, it was good. And obviously the overtaking challenge was quite high in terms of it wasn't easy to make the pass, even with DRS, but it meant that they meant more. So making that overtake really changed the outcome of your race. And obviously we'll talk about the sprint race and the late race overtakes that changed the complexion of that result and how the overtakes, obviously with the different strategies through the feature race, affected who won and lost.
Absolutely. Before we get into today's podcast, we've recently hit 100,000 subscribers on the F2 show. Woo-hoo. A massive thank you to all of you guys for your continued support. It really does mean that we can get more guests, we can get more content out to you guys for you to enjoy. So thank you very much for your support. Continue to subscribe, continue to like the podcast, whether that's on YouTube, whether that's on Apple Podcasts, whether that's on Spotify. Thank you very much for your support. And we'll continue to provide the content. Okay, we're going to be talking about Josh Durksen securing his first podium in Formula 2. We're also going to be discussing Franco Colapinto becoming the first Argentine to win a Formula 2 race. We're going to be talking about the incident at the start of the sprint race as well. That was quite dramatic, wasn't it? But there is only one place to start, and that is Isack Hadjar winning winning the second race in a row, second feature race in a row, recording back-to-back wins. It was a brilliant performance by Isack Hadjar, wasn't it, Lawrence?
Yeah, absolutely. And like you say, back-to-back feature race wins, that's where it all counts. That's where you get 25 points for the win in the feature race. And ultimately, if you're winning feature races throughout the season, you'll win the title in all likelihood. And so to win 2 back-to-back is an incredible achievement. And he said after the race that was his toughest of his entire career. Because once he actually got into the lead, it was never comfortable for him. Bortoleto was breathing down his neck all the way, and especially towards the end, but he survived that pressure and got the win. So he'll be immensely proud of that. And having to do all of that with his first time racing around Imola, the narrow, twisty circuit, which has now got more gravel right there if you go off to punish you, where, like we saw in the sprint race, a single error, be it usually on the exit of the final corner, can cost you a position. He survived that pressure, and he had very little experience of the track. F2 has only been here 2 years ago when he wasn't even on the grid, and in the sprint race he got taken out before the first corner. So he was really having to learn as he went, and so to pull off such a professional drive, not crack under the pressure, to manage the tyres and just have the all-out pace to be quick enough to be out there at the front. What a wonderful performance from him, and he will be brimming with confidence going into Monaco. And boy, is that a circuit you need some confidence for. So he'll be having all the feel-good factors right now.
Absolutely. 9 points off the top of the championship lead that leaves him. So he's game on for the championship, isn't it? And Aaron, for me, there's two drivers who have really stood out this year in terms of having pace in every single race weekend, and that's Zayn Maloney, championship leader, and Isack Hadjar is the other one. You know, he got unlucky in Bahrain. He was unlucky in Jeddah as well, with incidents that he was caught up in or mechanical issues. He has shown pace, as has Zayn Maloney, every single weekend. I think you can put Paul Aron into that category slightly, where he's been consistently very, very good, but he hasn't quite had that race-winning pace. Isack Hadjar, Zayn Maloney both had that race-winning pace, and Isack Hadjar is absolutely a title contender, isn't he?
Yeah, at the moment he definitely is, and raw speed is not something you can teach a driver. Friend of the show, Alex Brundle, will tell us all about that, I'm sure. And you see it in the drivers that do eventually graduate to Formula One. They have that inherent speed, and then they just sort of polish off the edges, don't they? And Hadjar's showing that potential that we saw in Formula 3. I was a little bit sceptical about him after last year's performances. I think he let emotions get in the way a little bit. I think there was a pressure from the Red Bull environment. They had so many junior drivers. They kind of trimmed that down this year. And I think Hadjar, being one of those that was retained, has given him the sort of inner security, that inner belief that almost he's one of the ones that they really see potential in. And now he's just starting to deliver on that. And he said today he wasn't the fastest man on track. He felt Bortoleto, who finished second, was faster. But he took the opportunity. He got ahead at the start and things fell his way. There was, a little bit of bad luck for other drivers, but he was there to capitalise. And sometimes in sport, it's better to be a little bit lucky than good. But don't get me wrong, it wasn't a lucky win. He still had to keep it on the track, make no mistakes, as Lawrence has already alluded to. It would have been so easy to, dip a wheel in the gravel and that's the race completely gone. But he kept his head, kept it on track, and thoroughly deserved that victory. And we're really starting to see the package of Isack Hadjar come together. And like you said, he and Zayn Maloney have really stood out. Paul Aron has had the consistency and he almost got the job done in the sprint race. But it just seems to be, unfortunately for Paul Aron, a case of the nearlies. He's almost there, but it just keeps escaping from him. Hopefully that changes. But, all the while that Isack Hadjar and Zayn Maloney are getting the job done, they're going to be putting themselves in prime position to battle for the championship.
Great weekend for Isack Hadjar. Great weekend for Campos as well, who jumped to the top of the team standing. So, great weekend all round. And a question that I'm starting to wonder, and I'm going to make this our question of the round, actually. Leave your thoughts in the comments below as to what you think about this question. Is Isack Hadjar, if he mounts a championship campaign this year and he's competing for the championship, is he in with a shot of an RB seat in Formula One next year? Let us know what your thoughts are in the comments below. I'm really interested to see what you think, whether you think he is in with a shot of an RB seat next season. Lawrence, you're about to say something. Have you got a thought on that?
I hadn't even thought that far ahead. I mean, the Red Bull Junior program over the last sort of few years hasn't really been at its best when you see that they're bringing back drivers like Danny Rick, rather than promoting younger talent. They brought in Sergio Perez in Red Bull with Max Verstappen because the younger drivers, more promising talents like Gasly and Albon struggled against Max Verstappen. So it feels like they haven't had that standout talent to promote up to Formula One. So if Hadjar does the business this season, why not? You've got to think Red Bull would want to and should be investing in that young talent. When was the last time we saw a young Red Bull driver come up from Formula 2 into Formula 1? It was Yuki Tsunoda several years ago now. And that, compared to Red Bull's track record of promoting junior drivers, isn't particularly good. So that would be wonderful, wouldn't it, to see Hadjar get that? He has to earn it first. The Red Bull factory is unforgiving, but wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, it's, I think Liam Lawson, we're under the impression he's virtually guaranteed a seat there next season. But if Danny Rick's going to be, 34, maybe 34, and Yuki Tsunoda moving into his 5th season at RB, is he looking elsewhere? I don't know. Yeah, just throw it out there. Could we see Liam Lawson and Isack Hadjar as the lineup at RB next season? Let's wait and see. Someone who pushed Isack Hadjar the whole way in the feature race was Gabriel Bortoleto. Was there a point, Aaron, our F1 historian, Aaron Harper, was there a point where you thought we were going to be talking about a Brazilian-born McLaren driver winning at Imola this weekend, on the weekend that we celebrated 30 years since obviously the tragic passing of Ayrton Senna?
There was a strong possibility, wasn't there? In the last couple of laps, he really piled on the pressure. But like I said, Isack Hadjar resisted beautifully. And, Gabriel can be really pleased with his weekend. I've actually just written a piece for the website, sort of recapping Invicta Racing's weekend. He did a really solid job. Obviously, took the pole position on Friday. He doesn't have the best record at the moment from pole position. He seems to get pole and then make terrible starts. He did say in the press release quotes that that's something they need to look at, is the start procedures and maybe whether they're putting the tyres in the right temperature window or how they're engaging the clutch system. Perhaps that's all just speculation from me, but that start is critical. And today, it made or broke your race. And the fact that he didn't get away, he lost so many positions. He was fortunate to get two of them back. One leapfrogging Josh Durksen through the pit stops, and Ollie Bearman having his problems in the pit lane as well. But he couldn't quite make the overtake against Hadjar. But, it's his first F2 podium, so he'll be really pleased with that. And obviously, what a timely weekend to do it when we're remembering Ayrton Senna and his passing in 1994. So, for Brazil, it's the next young hope. Obviously, we could have had Felipe Drugovich on the grid. Maybe Bortoleto can get there. But there's not many seats available in Formula One, I know at the moment, which is really annoying because we've got these great talents from South America in Bortoleto and Colapinto. And my word, does South America need an F1 talent that can be at the front, but we're just not getting it. But, still a great weekend for Bortoleto. He did a great job to recover to P2. I think that should be pointed out as well. He's got great powers of recovery despite those sluggish starts. He's finished in the points in both races, and indeed on the podium today as we're recording. So, all's not lost. If he can perfect those starts from pole position, he'll win races. But all the time he's having those sloppy starts, he'll struggle to get that win. But the potential is certainly there.
www.insidef2.com if you want to go and check out Aaron's article. There's a lot more articles on there as well about the weekend's action. Something about Gabriel Bortoleto over the weekend that I realised is Gabriel Bortoleto was his second pole in this season, which means that he now has more pole positions than Lando Norris and then Liam Lawson. And it's round number 4 of his rookie campaign. That is quite some going. Very good over one lap. And from one South American to another South American, Joshua Durksen on the podium in the feature race. Unbelievable. What a weekend for him. Obviously qualifying in P5 as well, which set it up for the feature race. It's, unbelievable performance, Aaron, right?
Yeah, I mean, overall, for the newly rebranded AIX Racing, this was just such a buck of the trend. They have been at the back for the last sort of 18 months, ever since they stopped being Charoots.
That was sort of point.
And it was just, an unbelievable set of results this weekend. Sadly for them, Taylor Barnard was disqualified from the sprint, but Josh Durksen drove wonderfully today. For a young driver who's not had much experience at the front of an F2 field, he kept his head. There could have been a mistake in there. There could have been, just a lack of pace. But actually, he did a really good job. And you could see how pleased he was on the podium. How many times will you get to be on an F2 podium? This isn't to sort of doubt his talent, but this could be the only time he gets to do it. So he stood up there and he milked it. Make the most of it. I mean, I've not got on an F2 podium yet. I'm not sure I ever will. But, that's beside the point. He got up there. He earned it. Make the most of it. And that's why we love motorsport and sport in general. For those moments where, someone achieves and you get to share that moment, obviously via your television or your laptop or however you're watching, and you can just see how much it means to them. And it was a thoroughly well-earned result for him and for the team, because they've kind of been through the mill a little bit, running around at the back. But a solid weekend from them, and long may it continue. We want them at the front. We want as many drivers getting in on the action and spraying the champagne around as we can. And all that good fun. So well done to Josh Durksen and to AIX.
Aaron, I love that you said there that you haven't been on a Formula 2 podium yet. I love that. Still hope, right? So, launching your career soon, right?
Absolutely. Just I need the budget. So if the F2 show can generate the funds, we can put Aaron on a grid.
Amazing. Be a second Aaron in Formula 2. Great result for Josh Durksen. I was absolutely, buzzing for him and buzzing for AIX as well in their first race as that rebranded team. I want to see those Paraguay flags in the comments. We said it a few weeks ago. I want to see all those Paraguay flags in the comments and, inspiring a generation. Absolutely brilliant. Josh Durksen, take a bow and soak in every moment. From happiness to despair, maybe. Ollie Bearman stalling from the lead of the feature race. Had a great start, but it just sums up his season, doesn't it? He's had a torrid start to the season and it continues, doesn't it, Aaron? Your boy.
The worst thing about this was, so here's a little story for all the listeners. So because we'd gone so long without an F2 race, I'd become accustomed to a lie-in on a Sunday morning. But I'm not really a lie-in sort of person. I tend to get up sort of 8 o'clock on a Sunday, not too much out of my normal routine. This morning, I woke up at 9:10, which was 10 minutes after the race started. So there I am watching it on catch-up, and then suddenly it goes from like the catch-up version to just live. And Ollie Bearman has gone from first to 21st. I'm like, what's going on here? And then Fraser's caught me up with the action. I'm like, this is terrible. It just sums up his season. I think he will take finishing 21st if he ends up on the Formula One grid next year. He's driven a Ferrari. So I don't think he cares very much in the grand scheme of things. But honestly, he's a competitor. He wants to win races. And I think he would have won the race. He was looking well set. So, Imola's a tricky track to overtake. He'd done the hard bit, which was beat Bortoleto off the line. And all he had to do was keep the wheels turning to the checkered flag. But, we see it so many times in an F2 pit stop that the driver does stall. It's a real rarity in Formula One. But in F2 and F3, well, they don't do pit stops in F3, but in F2, it can happen quite regularly, but it's just one of those things. It's motor racing. We've all, if you drive a car, we've all stalled the car at some point, and even if you're an experienced driver, you do it just because you're not concentrating. But it sums up his season. It seems to be going so well. He's got the pace. He's in the right positions, and it gets away from him. But we've got a lot of races coming up in quick succession. And we've got Baku still to come this season. So, he'll just win both those races there, with a bent steering rack. It'll be fine. So, he's absolutely still in championship contention, everyone. Don't worry. It's fine.
Lawrence, my question was going to be, look at Jack Doohan last season, right? Jack Doohan also had a pretty torrid start to last season, but second half of the season, he won 3 races. He was, the most consistent driver in the second half of last season, and he catapulted from about 11th, 12th in the standings all the way up to finish 3rd. Is that what Ollie Bearman's going to be looking at and using as motivation? That all it takes is 2-3 good rounds in a row, and that's it. He's straight back up there in the top 5 of the championship.
Well, he could have won. He could have won in Jeddah, and he could have won in Imola as well. Both feature races, 50 points, which puts you right up there on its own. Like, and Aaron said, he could have scored in the sprint race in Jeddah as well. So, yeah, just look at those two things: one stand-in for Sainz, one or rather 2 stalls in the pit lane in Imola, and look how different the picture is immediately.
Someone's going to put like an internet thread of like the butterfly effect of Sainz's appendicitis, where it just changes the trajectory of Ollie Bearman's career. Instead of ending up in a Ferrari, he's like ended up at Mercedes, and they're like the 6th fastest car or something weird. That's like 10 years down the line.
Yeah, it's all Carlos Sainz's appendix's fault. Absolutely. So, a mind-blowing stat that I put on social media, I put it on X at Fraser Ford 1. If you want to give that a follow, over the weekend was, and I couldn't believe this when I tweeted this, 9 out of the 11 teams in Formula 2 have stood on the Formula 2 podium this season. The 2 teams who haven't stood on the podium this season are Prema and ART. That is unbelievable. If someone had told you that at the beginning of the season, and we'd be 4 rounds in, and the only 2 teams not to stand on the podium so far this season were Prema and ART, no one would have believed you. Absolutely no one would have believed you. That's outrageous, right, Lawrence?
That is absolutely bonkers. That really is, because if you were to tell me, if you were to say to me before the season started which 2 teams are going to be leading, which 2 teams are going to have the most pace throughout the season, your first guesses would be Prema and ART probably. So to see the fact that they're the 2 that aren't, it obviously speaks to difficulties they've been having. I think what it also speaks to is the depth of talent throughout Formula 2 teams on the grid. You look at AIX Racing, even in their previous guys as PHM, sort of one of the younger teams, they've managed to put a good car together at points this season, and they've got themselves a podium. And look at teams like Dams or Campos that have really struggled at points over the last few years, and they've delivered as well. So I think it just shows that we're getting a really, really strong grid, and maybe we're moving away from a period of there being the sort of, you have to be in the stronger teams versus you can't be in one of the weaker cars, so to speak. And that it's becoming even more of a level playing than we've seen before. It is already a spec series, but there's no reason that you can't win a title on a Dams or a Campos or any other car. You don't need to be in Prema or ART or one of these teams. So I think it's wonderful for the championship, not wonderful for ART or Prema, of course. But yeah, what an incredible stat. Good work.
It underscores the fact that we've had a change of car as well, the philosophy of the car, and that all the teams are still learning and working out how to get on top of it. Sometimes you get it in the window, sometimes you are hopelessly out of it.
Absolutely. Guys, I'm going to move it on. Franco Colapinto was the winner of the sprint race. He became the first Argentine to win a Formula 2 race. A great performance and a great move for the win as well, wasn't it, Aaron? Overtaking your namesake, Paul Aaron, at the end of the race.
Yeah, I wasn't happy about this. I wanted Aaron to win for obvious reasons. But do you know what? The overtake was superb. Take nothing away from Franco Colapinto. It was an outrageously good overtake, because that was his last chance. If he doesn't make that, he doesn't win the race. It's as simple as that. And credit where credit's due. He profited from Cordeel's early error, and then he closed down Paul Aaron. So he showed he had the pace. So really, the fastest man won, which you kind of want to see. That's kind of how racing should be. But, there is obviously room within that, like we saw with Isack Hadjar today, for great defensive driving and opportunism. But that overtake, just absolutely superb. Round the outside, it could have all ended in tears. How often have we seen 2 drivers scrapping over a podium or the lead in Formula 2, and it just end in shattered front wings and broken suspension? So credit to both drivers for keeping it clean. Obviously, Paul Aaron was very disappointed to lose out on the win, but it's still excellent points for him. He scored again in the feature race, so he's actually now only just 5 points off of Zane Maloney. So, it's not all bad for him, but for Franco Colapinto, absolutely superb. And again, like I was saying earlier with Gabriel Bortoleto, Argentina, a country that in sort of European motorsport has lacked exposure, lacked a big name. Obviously, we've got the god that is Juan Manuel Fangio, 5 times a world champion, and no one's really ever got close to that from Argentina since. So it's great to see Colapinto flying the flag for Argentina and sort of putting them back on the motorsport map again.
A great weekend for the South American countries. Obviously, Bortoleto, great result for him. Colapinto picks up his first win of the series. Josh Durksen, as we said, from Paraguay, with an unbelievable weekend. And J.M. Correa in the points as well, American, Ecuadorian. Great result for him as well. Lawrence, we saw an incident at the start of the sprint race. It was a little bit messy. I think that's fair to say. 5 drivers were out, 2 of which were South American, Enzo Fittipaldi and Josh Durksen. Isack Hadjar was obviously caught up in that as well, Roman Stanek. What did you make of that incident? It was, quite dramatic, wasn't it, at the start of the race?
It really was quite dramatic, to say that it came about from very, very little. Just the slightest tap of wheels making such a massive chain effect. And it looked like Josh Durksen was going to get launched at one point. A bit of a scary incident when you've got all the grid hurtling down towards the turn and you've got cars that are going off and sort of in each other's way. So just glad that nobody was hurt in that accident, really. But yeah, how quickly, fortunes can turn, particularly in Imola, where the road is so narrow there and the run down to turn 1 isn't straight. So you get a situation where drivers are deviating from the straight line they're driving because they have to, in order to stay on the racetrack, in order to get towards the apex for the first corner. So it naturally bunches people together, which is what you saw happen. So a real shame, but an unavoidable incident, really, at the end of the day. And I don't think you can apportion blame to any particular driver in there.
Agreed, very much a racing incident. What did we make, chaps, of the Imola circuit? Second time Formula 2 has been to Imola. Do we like Formula 2 at Imola? What did we make of it? Aaron, I'll come to you first for that one.
I like anything at Imola. Imola's just a wonderful circuit. The history, it's got this amazing blend of beauty, of glory, and tragedy. It's just, if you had to pick one circuit to tell a motorsport story, it's Imola. And like the fact that you've got the little houses just like in and around the circuit, and it's a challenge as well. It's a real challenge. Qualifying laps there. Especially now that they've brought the gravel so close, if you make a mistake, you are punished. Obviously, we had the weird goings on in qualifying from Formula 2 with the deleted laps and then the reinstated laps. Not really sure what was going on there, but hey-ho. It's classic motorsport stuff, isn't it? But the challenge of the circuit and the history of the circuit, it's just fantastic. And the young drivers going there in Formula 2 and Formula 3, I think they get a real thrill from going to these classic circuits, drivers they've looked up to. And obviously, we were remembering Ayrton Senna this weekend. So anyone who's involved in motorsport knows that story of the black weekend of Formula 1. So to go there, they get to pay their respects. They get to emulate their heroes. They get to see that. They get to take on that challenge. I just think it fits everything you want. The only thing it doesn't do is necessarily provide fantastic racing. But, you could probably fix that by making the DRS zone 150 meters longer, whether you like DRS or not. So, there is that. But again, it's just a wonderful challenge. It's a wonderful place to go. I'd love to go there myself one day. I'll sneak up onto the podium just so I can tick that off the bucket list. And I just think it's a great place to go motor racing.
Gosh, Aaron's like the car in Cars with like the little Italian flags. There's so much passion for the circuit, and I totally agree. I think Imola's got quite a special place, I think, in most racing fans' hearts. I've got to admit, I struggled with it at points during both races. During the mid parts of the races, I was like, oh, this is rubbish. No one can overtake. Just wish the track was a bit wider. And, DRS zones are so tricky because how many times have we been frustrated by a track where the DRS is a little bit too long, there's a headwind, and all of a sudden there are no proper overtakes. People are just blazing past each other in the DRS zone. They're already ahead by the time they get to the braking point, and the whole spectacle has kind of been removed because it's too easy. You definitely didn't have that today. It did mean at times that there were drivers that weren't able to get past that probably should have. But in the sprint race, you saw that pressure and the pressure of driving on Imola, which is such a driver's circuit, which is so intense, where the gravel's right there if you make a mistake, led to those drivers making those little errors, and that gave opportunities down into turn 1. We saw Aaron getting passed for the race lead in the sprint race. So it can be done. And I think the very fact that it is so difficult means that those racing moves are even more magical when they do happen. And it's not impossible to overtake.
I'm with you guys. I do like him, and it's a little bit frustrating at times, as you say, that they're a little bit, lacks overtaking opportunities. But what a weekend for those drivers. So hopefully that sticks on the calendar for next season. Let's take a look at the championship standings before we go then. Zane Maloney still leads the way with 68 points, but the gap is reducing by the round now, with Paul Aaron and Isack Hadjar both within 10 points of the Rodin driver. A weekend to forget for Dennis Hauger, who sits 4th. Gabriel Bortoleto and Kimi Antonelli are tied on 36 points each in P5 and P6. A maiden win for Franco Colapinto means that he moves level on points with Kush Maney. Enzo Fittipaldi and Jack Crawford round out the top 10. And the team standings? Campos moved to the top of the team standings. Campos moved to the top of the team standings on 85 points, 1 single point ahead of Rodin. High-Tech continue their good form. They sit 3rd ahead of MP and Invicta, just 13 points separating the top 5 teams. First points and first podium for AIX Racing in their first race as a rebranded team, but they're still rounding out the bottom of the team standings. Okay, that's all we got time for today. As we said at the beginning of the podcast, a massive thank you for your support in getting us to 100,000 subscribers. Remember to answer our question of the round in the comments section as well. Is Isack Hadjar a contender for an RB seat if he mounts the title challenge? Let us know in the comments what you think. We're happy to discuss on the next podcast. Remember to follow us on our social media channels as well at Inside F2 for all of the latest news, updates, and everything you need to know about all things Formula 2. But from me, Fraser Ford, and all of us here at Inside F2, we'll see you next time.